Occlusion Laboratory Video Guides, Video 5, Waxing Teeth numbers 3, 6, and 8. For this exercise, you will need waxing instruments, morphology reference such as models, baby powder or aluminum oxide, your articulator and models, articulating paper, sticky wax, blue sculpting wax, and your Bunsen burner. First, we will start with tooth number 3. In this photo, the tips of the buccal cusps on tooth number 3 land near the buccal developmental grooves of the mandibular first molar. The buccal developmental grooves on the mandibular first molar should be marked for reference. First step would be to apply separator to the opposing surfaces. Next, add a thin layer of sticky wax to the platform of tooth number 3. Next, mark the receiving areas on the mandibular molar for the supporting cusps, also known as the stamp cusps. Shown, the red markers represent the receiving areas, and the blue markers represent the supporting cusps or stamp cusps of the mandibular molar. We will be building up tooth number 3 using the wax drop technique. This means that the wax will be built up to occlusion with minimal carving. First, we create cones. We will begin with the mesiolingual cusp of tooth number 3. It is important to check that the cones are meeting in the proper receiving area of the mandibular opposing molar. Pictured here is a maxillary first molar. The blue represents the receiving areas, and the red represents the stamp cusps. This will serve as a reference when waxing the first molar. Once the first cone is done, the second cone, which represents the distal lingual cusp of tooth number 3, will be made. Remember to frequently check that the cone is meeting in the proper receiving area. This photo shows how cusps are related to their receiving areas. Once the supporting cusps or stamp cusps are finished, we can now move on to the non-supporting cusps. We will begin with the mesiobuccal cusp of tooth number 3. The markings made previously will help you align the tips of the buccal cusps where they should be. Next, we will move on to the distal buccal cusp of tooth number 3. The same markings will be used as reference again. Next, we will create a fish mouth around the peripheral border of tooth number 3. Once the fish mouth is complete, you should be able to see the beginnings of the rhomboidal shape of tooth number 3. Now or later, you could use a Murphy knife to remove the excess from the border. Now it is time to fill the fish mouth with wax. You could do this by pooling it in the center, or slowly creating each triangular ridge. Once the fish mouth has been filled, the basic structure of the molar should be seen. Once the fish mouth is full, contacts must be checked. This is done by sprinkling baby powder or aluminum oxide on top of the wax. Next, check the bite with articulating paper. The contact point should be as shown. The central fossa of tooth number 3 should receive the distal buccal cusp of the mandibular molar. The mesial marginal ridge of tooth number 3 should receive the mesial buccal cusp of the opposing mandibular molar. The mesiolingual cusp of tooth number 3 should be received into the central fossa of the mandibular molar. And the distal lingual cusp of tooth number 3 should be received into the distal marginal ridge of the mandibular molar. You can choose to remove the powder before or after removing any high spots left by the articulating paper. As you begin to remove high points, it is a good idea to start shaping the molar. You can do so by adding the developmental groove on the buccal side of the molar. As you carve away the high points indicated by the articulating paper, it would be a good idea to start carving the occlusal surface. The most important occlusal anatomy would be your central fossa, your developmental grooves, and your triangular ridges. Make sure to have broad contacts by their marginal ridges. Also, do not forget to add the cusp of carabelli. After your initial carving, check the contacts again. Any high points should be removed. These steps should be repeated until contacts are where they should be. In the end, your contacts should be in these general areas: the distal lingual cusp, the mesial lingual cusp, the central fossa, and the mesial marginal ridge. To high shine your wax up, you may use package foam. Insert the package foam into a mandrel. This will give your wax a high shine. Next, we will be working on tooth number 6, the canine. Apply separator to the opposing teeth. After applying a coat of sticky wax, create the marginal ridges. Once all the marginal ridges are made, check for contacts. Check for contact in regular centric and in lateral excursion. Your contact point should be on the mesial and distal marginal ridges, along the junction between the incisal third and middle third. Begin to carve away any high spots left by the articulating paper, along with carving in lingual anatomy. Be sure to check that there's contact during canine guidance. Once tooth number 6 is complete, you may high polish it with the package foam and move on to tooth number 8. After placing a base coat of sticky wax, apply marginal and incisal ridges. Once ridges are done, now we can check for contacts. Contacts will be checked in centric occlusion and in protrusive. Contacts should be on mesial and distal marginal ridges, somewhere near the junction of the incisal third and the middle third. Once contacts are formed, you may fill in the rest of the lingual side of the tooth and carve in lingual anatomy. When all 3 teeth are finished, you might want to recheck all the contact points. Make sure all receiving areas and stamp cusps have the proper contact points. Once all this is checked, you may repolish all 3 wax ups, and you are done with this exercise.